We are live. We're live. We're here. So welcome everybody to Supporting Your Autistic Children in 2024 and Q&A with me, Jude Morrow. So I'll address what needs to be addressed right away. It is the 2nd of April of 2024, and I'm sure all of you know or may know what today is. This is Autism Awareness Day. And what today is the most depressing day of the whole year. I have had to fight incredibly hard not to be in the fetal position in my bed, in my room with the door closed, the blinds closed, and the lights off for the last 48 hours because I knew today was coming. For the other 365 or 366 days of the year, if it is indeed a leap year, I dread this day with every fiber of my being. It makes me incredibly sad. And here's the reason why. All Autism Awareness Day is, in my eyes, from the point of view of an autistic person who is echoing the same opinions of many autistic people around the world, is that it is one day for businesses, organizations, charities, influencers, corporate bodies and entities and institutions to virtue signal their desire to create a better world for autistic people, young and old, across the world. Yet it's only for one day, this day, every year, and the other 365 or 366 days of the year, if indeed a leap year, there is stone cold silence. That's what there is, complete silence, and nothing happens. I get tagged in loads of things, and people genuinely do have their heart in the right places, and I suppose people care, and that's fine, and I get that completely. And I just want to show a couple of comments. So we've got Katrina Jones. Hi, Katrina. So what I'm doing is I'm going to try and get comments up on the screen and everything else. And to concur what Abby Lilburn has said. Hi, Abby. Just to concur, is we're well past awareness. It should be acceptance. And that is totally right, Abby. That is exactly where we are. That's exactly where we should be. Totally, I couldn't agree any more with that. So thank you for the comment. By the way, I want to go over, I suppose for the purposes of this live stream, how to best support your autistic kids in 2024. That's what I want to do. And it ties in beautifully with the theme of Autism Awareness Day. It ties in very, very nicely with that. I am more than open to any questions. Please feel free in the comments below. Put your questions in there. What I would love, just so I can filter the comments, is to please start your question with, my question is, and please try and limit your question as much as you can. So it's no holds barred. Ask absolutely whatever you want. I will answer every question within reason, other than what is owed to HMRC. Ha 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 ha. And we've got, and deserves a big, big shout out, is Randa. Hello, Randa. Randa is the beating heart and soul of Neurodiversity Training International, who helps out with all things in the ND Sphere app. And I get to have the lovely job in terms of NTI of being the handsome face of it and the hopeful one. So thank you for that, Randa. So what I want to do is give the briefest of introductions for people who don't know me, for people who don't know who I am and what I'm about. I will try and keep this as short and succinct as I possibly can. So to introduce myself formally, which I will do for the first handful of videos for the channel, which I do want to build over time. My name's Jude Morrow, and I am an autistic adult. I'm 33, and I was one of the first wave of autistic children to go through the mainstream school system in the UK, which started in the mid-1990s. If I was born in 1980 instead of 1990, I probably would have went to a special educational needs school. Now, that is not disparaging in any way towards special educational needs schools. However, the quality and curricula and learning outcomes were certainly not as strong as what they would be today in 2024. I grew up, went through the usual challenges that many of you are facing with your children now. I was a very fussy eater. I was a picky eater, perhaps ARFID in there, where I survived the early years of my life on two things: digestive biscuits and milk. I used to line up my toy cars. I didn't have many friends. I went to speech therapy whenever I was a child. I was a lonely kid. a lot of the time, that yearned for connection and friends. And I suppose often through my whole teenage years, had to mold myself into somebody I wasn't in order to fit in and survive in a world that was not made for me. Then I became a social worker, and I worked in loads of different fields. I worked in mental health. I worked in primary care, palliative care, the hospitals, community, learning disability, worked in loads of different places. I was a bit of a nomad throughout my social work career, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. One thing I always was a bookworm. Excuse me. And what I decided to do was I decided to write a book about the aforementioned experiences. It was called Why Does Daddy Always Look So Sad? And it was my journey into becoming a parent. Because most autism related literature of the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s was all about parents writing about their story, struggles, hardships, triumphs, and celebrations of parenting an autistic child. Whereas I was the other way around, where I was the autistic parent. And that book really took off and went all around the world, and really grateful for it. It was published by Beyond Words. They're the publisher of The Secret. They publish my books. And yeah, people were asking me to speak at events, to speak at schools, and to travel and do conferences and everything else. And it bloomed into what Neurodiversity Training International is now. And this all started in 2018. So I've been on the go quite a long time. I've suffered a lot of autism awareness days now in the position that I'm now in. But whenever my first book came out, something really struck me. And this was 2019. Is that a lot of people were resonating with my story from the 90s in the present day. So it made me wonder, well, what's changed? What's really happened? Why are we no further forward? Why is that? And I've said that on the TED stage. I've said that when I was interviewed by Forbes magazine. I've said that in nearly every top tier 1 publication or television or radio or everything else I've been in. What is going on? And the short answer to that question is very little. Here's the situation that parents of autistic kids are finding themselves in 2024. And I'm sure this will resonate with a lot of you. There's no support out there. There's nothing happening. Waiting lists are getting longer for diagnostic assessments. There's nothing in my area. There's nothing anywhere. And there are more and more autistic children who are not attending school due to things like burnout, due to things like trauma, due to severe emotional distress, due to schools not meeting a child's needs, due to chronic underfunding, and the system is just one big, giant fireball that we are all engulfed in. But you don't have to be, as much as possible. And I'll get to that in a minute. So that's where we are. It's Autism Awareness Day 2024. But year on year, the situation is getting worse. It's getting worse. Every year, it's not getting any better. And here's the first thought that I want you to think. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to put thoughts in your head. And here's thought number 1 for your head. Remember all the promises and pledges and campaigns that were announced in last year's Autism Awareness Day? Do you remember any of them? Let me know in the comments if you remember any of them. And I will eat my hat if anybody remembers any of them. I really will. With salt and pepper, maybe some aromat, and some hot chili sauce that I got from Marks and Spencer's yesterday. I will eagerly await, and I just want to, again, jump on what Abel Elburn has said. It's shocking. Not much has changed. Nothing has changed. Does anybody remember any campaigns? And it doesn't matter if you're here live with me in the room or you're watching this afterward. Do you remember anything without having to Google it or ask someone? The answer is probably no. And you will see them all today and over the coming days whenever corporates and charities and everybody else are doing their Autism Awareness Day stuff. This is what we're going to have changed by Autism Awareness Day 2025. And it'll be the same every year. Nothing will have happened. Nothing will have changed. Nothing. And we will still get the same stuff of council offices and people lighting things up blue, which we don't want, which we've never wanted, ever. And this is what's happening. There are so many dinners, so many campaigns, So many fundraisers, but nothing's changing. You might get a giggle at this. So get your giggle faces on. Whenever I started doing this, and this was 2018, I was never open, out, and proud about being autistic, quite like I am now back then. But I remember, and I remember it as clear as day, and I remember the lady's name. I'll not say it out loud. And do you know what she said to me? She said, Jude, it's an absolute disgrace. Do you know how long the waiting list is for a diagnostic assessment for autism or ADHD? And I said, no, please tell me. And do you know what she said? 3 years. Isn't that awful? And I was like, oh goodness, that is awful. And where are we at now in 2024? No matter where you are, in the UK or the Republic of Ireland or Northern Ireland or Wales or Scotland, wherever, the minimum time you'll be waiting for your child to get a diagnostic of assessment for ADHD or autism, if you start the process tomorrow, will be about 5 years, between 5 and 7 years, depending on where you are. But Autism Awareness Day has been so successful. It's been such a big campaign. And where has it led us to? Nowhere. Absolutely nothing. Now, I can say from being a member of the autistic community, very little has changed. Very little to nothing. So I know my parents did a lot of battling for me when I was a child, and I'm sure you're doing a lot of battling yourself now for your children. Here's something quite innovative, and this is what makes Jude Morrow typically the black sheep of the autism advocacy family, because I'm a realist. Let me explain why I am a realist. What I describe myself as is a chronic head extractor, as in I like to pull heads out of sand or out of other places where heads can lodge themselves. And I make no secret of it. I'm fully transparent and fully open about it. Yes, we are partnered with a private diagnostic clinic. No, Neurodiversity Training International is not a charity. Yes, we run supportive communities and classes and resources and one-to-one consultancy and family work and everything else. And yes, it has price tags on it. I make no secret of that. Although people are saying they're battling all the time, and that there's no support out there. I am telling you to stop battling. Stop battling. Take your helmets off, put your rifles down, and stop battling. Because there's lots of influencers out there in the autism and ADHD space that are tagging their MPs and the Prime Minister and governmental leaders and decision makers all over the UK and Ireland to say, things need to be better, things need to be better. And on days like today, they'll wear a blue tie or they'll have a blue hair ribbon or whatever else. Yes, it always seems to be blue for Autism Awareness Day, even though most members and organizations of the autistic community absolutely abhor the color blue when it comes to autism and autisticness and autistic discussions. What changes? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Think about this. Try and quantify the amount of hours in the last 12 months since the 2nd of April of 2023. Quantify those hours, how many times you have spent writing letters, phoning schools, phoning MPs, sending emails, whatever else, all these battle hours. Because that's what it is, it's time. And it doesn't matter what your financial position is. It doesn't matter whether you're below the poverty line, on the poverty line, or above it. There's one currency that defines battling, and that's time. Time. Your child will only have one growing up period, and what's that going to be spent doing? Fighting all the time? A lot of people have said, and I'm going to address the real elephant in the room, because it's a big, giant, fluffy, dancing elephant with roller skates on it. A lot of people have said, Jude, you've changed in the last while. And you're right, I have. Because do you know why I've stopped battling? I was the guy, as a member of the autistic community, was banging on doors, I naively thought, in my, let's call it inherent good nature and belief, that there was people behind these doors who cared. And maybe they do. They just have a very, very funny way of showing it and opening the door and embracing anything to do with the autistic community. Because here's what it is. It is not the education authority's fault. It is not your child's school's fault. It is not your fault as a parent. It is not your GP's fault. It is not CAMHS's fault. It's not. The fact of the matter is, this is a funding and resources issue that hasn't been deployed our way at all, at any point. So here's the shock gas power piece of advice of how you can best support your child in 2024. Go private. Go private for everything if you can. Because there's two currencies of humankind. It is cash money and time. And both of those things are interchangeable. Like the old saying, time's money. I had a one-to-one call today with a mum. She's 30, but younger than me. She's 2 kids. Both of them are autistic, and one is autistic and ADHD. And I asked her, count up how many hours you've spent trying to improve their situation. And she said, I don't know, maybe in the last 4 or 5 years, maybe about 1,000 hours between them both. That's a long time. And it's even more costly when a situation is allowed to fester or not improve in any way. This is where we need to go a different direction. And I know all the promises from last year and the year before and the year before that will still stand. And they will all sound something like this. You know, on this Autism Awareness Day, we pledge to get the waiting lists down. We pledge to deploy more resources to child and adolescent mental health. We pledge to get schools the resources they need to support autistic pupils in their classrooms. These promises are made every year. They're made every single year. And none of them have been kept. Do you know what I would love? I would love this video to be wrong and to be a laughing stock. I would. Oh, look how wrong Jude was. I don't care about being wrong. At least not publicly. I would love to be proven wrong. Nothing would make me happier than to wake up in the morning, read the paper. Right, we've decided to use the magic money tree, which does exist. It existed for PPE, vaccines, Trident, bailing out the banks, various other aid missions around the world, and whatever else. There is a magic money tree. Do not let anybody tell you that there isn't. That they have decided to pluck the money fruit from the magic money tree and put it into this area. I would love that. Nothing would make me happier. What I would do is I would dance around my house. And I've been waiting to dance around my house for about 7 years, and it hasn't happened. And it is unlikely to happen in the future. So how you support your autistic child in 2024 is you take control yourself. You do it yourself. Whatever you need, go and get it. Go and get it yourself. From wherever you need to get it from. Because the private sector has loads of support. And I would really, really love for the NHS and the HSE to work. I would love that. Nothing would make me happier. Absolutely nothing in this world would make me happier. But unfortunately, they're not working. They're not serving us. The waiting lists for diagnostics are getting longer because the population is growing exponentially and is year on year, thanks dating apps. The population is growing. And if the population grows, the autistic population will grow in line with it. And if there is no more funding and resources deployed to it, it will mean that waiting lists will get longer and the situation will not improve. You can opt out of that. You can opt out of battling. You can say, you know what, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be fighting forever. Forever and ever and ever. I don't want to be doing this. You totally have that choice. You absolutely have the choice. And I have lost a lot of friends for taking this stance. I really have. Because people have been saying Jude, but you should be joining the campaigns, joining the pressure groups in order to get decision makers to stand up and listen. I have been to so many rallies. I've helped organize some rallies as well. I've spoken at lots of them. I've written so many letters to politicians. I've turned up to their offices. I've arranged appointments with them. I've hosted public events, public meetings at massive expense, not just to my business, but to my own pocket and my well-being and happiness and relationship with my son. And do you know what I achieved? Nothing. I achieved nothing. Now, do I regret all of that in the last 7 years? Absolutely not. I don't. If I could go back in time, I would happily do it all again, because I've met some of the most lovely, wholesome, wonderful people that have always believed in me, the mission, the cause of improving conditions for autistic children around the world. And I wouldn't swap those friendships for anything except for funding into public services. But stop and think, is that really going to happen? Because I really don't think it is. This is what we need to accept. Now, Autism Awareness Month is often has been rebranded as Autism Acceptance Day or Autism Acceptance Month. And sometimes leadership involves conveying a difficult message. And this is my difficult message that I am conveying to you. You need to accept that it's unlikely that the system will help you quickly. It's very unlikely. And that can be for anything: diagnostic assessments, occupational therapy, speech and language, counseling, and whatever more. It's very, very unlikely. I would love to be saying something different. And I could have done a video like, this is our campaign objectives for 2024. Please support us, and everything else, but it'd be hollow and for personal gain, because I know that I wouldn't get anywhere with it, no matter how much time, effort, passion, marketing materials, and cash I throw at it. I'll not get anywhere. It won't work. It's unfortunate to say, but it's true. And most of the impact that I see on the ground, locally and across the UK and Ireland, are by like-minded people forming groups of their own and inviting other people in to help them. Peer-to-peer support. It's huge. It's a good thing. So that's the first way of how you can support your autistic children in 2024. Take responsibility yourself and don't wait on the system to help you. If you can do it yourself, do so. Because if you can do it yourself, do it. And that could also work in thinning out the waiting lists for the people that perhaps don't have the means. Ask for help. As far as support, guidance, advice, everything else, whether it's through our social medias or through our website or through the comments here or wherever it may be, we are an open door. And we're always happy to sit with people and point people in the right direction, because that's what we do here. Here's the second thing, and I know that it's pretty hollow saying this kind of on a social media type of format, because that YouTube basically is social media as well, is be very, very careful who you're following online and what advice they're giving. The reason why I give advice to people and I talk to people and I can give guidance and a path forward from a personal point of view is because I'm a professionally qualified person. My background is in social work. I've done one-to-one mentoring, counseling, blah, 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 post-qualifying certificates and everything else. Unfortunately, what happened out in the world is that people, whenever they lost their jobs or went on furlough, decided to call themselves coaches. Now, there are professionally qualified people who do have coach as their title, and that's fine. But be very, very careful who you're entrusting your child's mental health to. On the subject of another one-to-one call I had yesterday. No, it was this morning. Sorry. Whoa. It was this morning. It was first thing this morning. She said that she'd hired a burnout coach for her daughter. And I said, how much did you pay this burnout coach for your daughter? And she said £3,000 for 12 sessions. £3,000. That's a lot of money for somebody that doesn't have a professional qualification. And what I mean by that is social worker, psychiatric nurse, counselor, psychotherapist, psychiatrist, psychologist, that type of thing. Things that are peer reviewed, things that have been efficient and effective in helping vulnerable people through mental health struggles now for centuries, which are tried, tested, proven, and that work. Yes, it does seem like a nice, attractive option, but please be very, very careful who you're heeding advice from, because I see a lot of very, very scary things and scary pieces of advice that are put out into the world. And I'll give you a scary piece of advice that's been perpetuating that I want to dismantle immediately. I know there are a lot more autistic children who cannot go to school because of an unresolved trauma or distress. We don't call them school refusers here. It's a school and a situation where needs cannot be met. So if your child is currently at home or being educated other than at school, if you're trying to form a transition plan or a learning plan or an IEP or an EHCP, wherever you are, it's going to be called something else. A lot of TikTok videos from unqualified but well-meaning people have said things like, if you're offered mediation, refuse it and go straight to tribunal. For the love of God, don't. If you're offered mediation, take it. Because what happens in the application process is they will ask you to articulate what you think you need. And it'll be all written out. And then it'll go to something like mediation. And normally what way it goes is we will increment or implement some things and build it up on an incremental basis over time. Because if you refuse mediation, how long do you think it'll be before you can get to tribunal? It's about a year in most places. It's about a year. And that's what people are saying to me. And I will give you this piece of advice, if you followed it, of how you can claw it back, because I've spoken to a couple of contacts in places like DARS or any local authority mediation service or whatever. If you've refused mediation and decided to go straight to tribunal and they've said, no problem, we'll be in touch in early 2025, what I implore you to do is to send another email and say, we've changed our minds, we'd like to avail of the mediation, please. And they will arrange it. And I'm saying that on good authority. Because schools are doing their best. They are. They really are. And it might be very trendy to stick the boot into the education authorities, but it's not their fault either. This is the macro issue here at play that's affecting your journey with your autistic children, is that funding isn't coming from the top down. So all the services are the cannon fodder and are getting all the complaints, getting all the challenges and all the upset, overwhelmed parents whose children are ultimately struggling. They are struggling too. They are. Because it's a very, very difficult job. I've worked inside that system for some of the services that I've just talked about. And it's very, very challenging. When you are short-staffed, you have operational challenges, bank staff, locum clinicians, and everything else. It can be very, very challenging, can be very, very hard. It is. I've been there on both sides of this. And going private, people automatically think it's too expensive. It's actually very reasonable these days because a lot of services are online, like diagnostics. As well, too, there's somebody saying, I'm just going to put up, and Katrina Jones, my friend Katrina Jones, pay for it, worth it. It is. It is worth it, no matter what clinic you go to. Whether it's the one we're partnered with, whether it's other ones, it is worth it. Because fighting is never worth it. Like, I've asked a lot, even inside our communities, I've asked a lot of parents, you did a lot of fighting for your kids. And these are ones that I've known for a long time now that are maybe now 19 or 20. And I met them when their children were 12 or 13 or 14. And I said, was all the battling worth it? And they said, absolutely, it wasn't. And I'm sure my parents would say the same. Was all the battling worth it? Probably not. Probably not. It is a big, big challenge. It really is. So be nice to the staff of the system because it's not their fault. They don't fund themselves. It's the people up above. Am I even saying, why don't you write to your MP? And I could say that. Feel free to do it if you really want to. But what's going to change? Nothing. Because it hasn't changed. There's lots of amazing groups, and I applaud the work that the charitable, voluntary, and third sector have made over the years in their attempts to try and get decision makers to stand up and take notice of the plight that our community faces. There have been some small ones along the way, but the ones just aren't good enough, unfortunately. What the real one would be is taking control, taking the power yourself, and taking action yourself in every way. Do not wait. I am telling you now, the situation likely will not get better. I wish I could tell you something different. Another thing is burnout. Now, there's a lot of, and I've shared this around the other social media channels today, where a lot of people say that their children are experiencing burnout. Burnout is not exhaustion. Burnout is an unresolved trauma when the coping mechanisms within your child's mind and functioning have broken down. And what you will hear out in the ether is, self-care, relax, taking time out and stuff like that. It's not that simple. The only healing for burnout is counseling or psychotherapy or CBT from a neuroaffirming professional or clinician. Many of them are found online. Because burnout isn't a case of being overly tired and needing to rest. It is an unresolved trauma that will keep causing mental blocks and issues until they are resolved by a professionally qualified person, not someone that's just going to tell you to breathe, write a journal, or think ahead into the future without dealing with any unresolved trauma from the past. All right? Burnout is not exhaustion. Burnout is emotional distress caused by unresolved trauma, and it can only be healed or repaired or moved forward from in partnership with a professionally qualified person. Lots of parents say, Jude, how can I help my child who's experiencing burnout? You help them by getting them a counselor, CBT therapist, or psychotherapist. That's neurodiversity affirming. There's plenty of them online. There's websites with neurodiversity affirming therapists. Go there. That's where you need to be. That's where you need to go. Another thing that I would love to perpetuate, for this year, there's still a worrying trend among the general population. And again, it's not to blame. It really isn't, because people follow people with high follower accounts on social media, is the idea that there's male and female autism. There isn't. Autism is a genderless entity. And the most common myth when it comes to this particular discussion is the idea that women and girls are somehow better maskers than men. And that simply is not true. What that is, in my eyes, is victim blaming. Because women and girls have spent so long being invalidated and rejected and pushed aside, because there are still many people within the medical communities that believe that autism and or ADHD is reserved exclusively for men or boys like Jude Morrow. And it's really unfortunate. So masking is not deceit, because think about it. Oh, we couldn't diagnose your daughter, your sister, your aunt, or whoever else in a timely manner because they were just so good at masking. As if they're sneaky or something. That's what I mean by victim blaming. It's just wrong, isn't it? Whenever you look at it through that lens. It really is. It's quite terrible. So women and girls can be as autistic as boys and men. Masking is not something that people can be good at either. People say, oh, my daughter is great at masking, or my son is great at masking. There's no such thing as being great at masking. Masking is an automatic survival mechanism, like a chameleon changing its colors to suit its environment and to feel safe. It's a safety mechanism. It's not to deceive or cheat people or to be fundamentally dishonest. Because I think that's what people think masking is. But that's not what masking is. And most private clinics now are affirming toward women and girls. That is changing. That is a positive, and I'm quite proud of that, to have played some tiny part in that evolution. What else? What am I missing? How best to support your child? Support their passions and their talents. What are they good at? What do they love? What are they really into? Is it trains? Is it rock formations? Is it cats? And the reason why I'm saying that is because Mrs. Arnold, my rescue cat, is actually just behind the camera and is looking at me quite menacingly because she knows that it's time to eat and that she normally eats around this time, but I decided to do a live stream at the same time. So Mrs. Arnold behind the camera, yes, I'm getting there. But focus on what they're good at. Have a strengths-based approach at home. And here's what I really want to ask yourself, and see it every training seminar I'm doing, whether it's in schools with teachers and teaching assistants, whether it's with counselors or social workers or psychotherapists or whoever that I am training. I am as guilty as charged of this. I am a parent myself. I'm not one of these autistic advocates who has no children of their own waving the waggy bony finger. I am a parent myself, and I am as guilty of charged of this thing as well. My question to you is, do you praise them enough? Because sometimes with my own son, maybe I don't. And here's my challenge to you. Do you praise them enough? Give them praise, celebrate the small ones, because what might be a small, insignificant one for you in your eyes might be a massive stride forward in their social development and confidence. And what I mean by social development isn't about conforming to be like everybody else or going through harmful nonsense behaviorist ABA or social skills training or anything like that. Every human being goes through social development as they age. And celebrate those things. Do you praise them enough? And if you're wondering, I don't know, do I? Do it a bit more. And see if you think you've praised them enough in a day. Throw in some extra before bed. Because we already have to live in a world where we need to fundamentally change the way we are to suit the comfort level of everybody else. So it's nice to get a bit of praise and some nice comments now and again. So I suppose to sum up before getting into some questions, don't wait on anybody or anything for help and support. Go out and pursue it and get it yourself. Burnout is unresolved trauma that can only be resolved through professional help. Simply withdrawing and resting and gaming and everything else is not going to solve the issue. Burnout is distress caused by unresolved trauma. So healing that trauma and getting past that hurt is going to be key and crucial. Masking is not deceit, and there's no difference or gender difference between autism. We are all as autistic, and saying that one gender or one type of person is more highly masking than another is really just ineptitude. And another thing, Lord forbid, some autistic kids like school. Some of them like school. It's not a case of, oh, they're masking in school. Maybe they're genuinely enjoying it. Yes, I know there can be explosions at home and so on and so forth, but it's just another point to consider, because what I like to do is to give a rounded view and a rounded approach. Because I've spoken to and worked with and connected and networked with a hell of a lot of people. And the fifth thing is, heap on the praise. Show your love, articulate it, verbalize it, and it'll build your child's confidence. So there we go. That's pretty much everything. That's my pontificating over. And I'm going to get to some questions now. So feel free in the comments below, drop your questions in there and I will get to them. I'm going to scroll up now and I'm going to see if there's anything that I have missed or anything. Oh, there is Abby. Again, local authorities work very hard to downplay and ignore private diagnoses, even though they are valid. That's a really, really good point. They are valid. And look, this isn't their fault either, because whenever you work in public services, which I did, You cannot necessarily promote the private sector whenever you're working in that position. And the reason for that is that with all NHS, health trusts, and local authorities, one of the main factors is image, is corporate image and public image. And saying, well, look, I know this clinic has availability is pretty much admission of defeat, which you're not really allowed to do. But I will give this reassurance out there. If a private diagnostic is done under the NICE guidelines by a HCPC registered psychologist using the same NHS diagnostic marking criteria as per the DSM-5, it is a valid diagnostic. And if it's rejected or refused, challenge it. Thank you for that, Abby. Okay, another question from Nicola. Hello, Nicola. Thanks for coming. I have a child, I believe, has a PDA profile and is going privately for an ASD assessment. ASD? Disorder compared to who? Ha ha ha. What I always say. He refuses to go, but I've tried to give him autonomy around it. Any advice to encourage him? Whenever it comes to PDA, it's all about offering choice. It's all about trying to offer choice and not being confrontational. Where it's going to be about a gentle approach. Now, PDA isn't basic. It's not a child being difficult. It's whenever a demand is placed, it triggers a nervous or anxious response. So here's something that I have found helps. And we're going to actually arrange for them to be made and even put on this YouTube channel are the processes for diagnostics that are child friendly and can be shown to children. Because I suppose a question in response to your question, Nicola, have you explained the process? Have you explained what's going to happen, what's ahead, and everything else, even using visuals? You can do that even through YouTube, but that would be encouraging, knowing what's ahead, going through the diagnostic process. Like whenever people come through us for our partner clinic, RTN, that's what we always advise parents to do, is to show them some visuals or give an outline of the process before going through it, and it does help promote engagement. Nicola, I hope that answers your question, and thank you for it. Okay. Anything else? Alrighty. Cindy, my daughter has ADHD and undiagnosed suspected autism, waiting for assessment. You'll be waiting a long time. New school missed that she has ADHD diagnosis. Is there any point getting her further assessed when no support given? Look, getting a diagnostic assessment isn't about what you will receive out of it in return in terms of resources given to you by either the private or the public sector. I don't know what age your daughter is, Cindy, but I will refer to the experiences of the many, many hundreds of autistic women and girls we've helped get through the diagnostic process. And it's not always about what's going to come out the other side. It's going to be the validation, the answering of the question, why am I different? Questions like, why do I struggle at school? Why do people find me too intense? Why do I find romantic relationships difficult? Why do I find friendships hard to retain? Why do I get burnt out so easily? Why do I have unresolved traumas? All of those questions, and to have an answer for them is worth more than anything that can be ever given to you or bought. It's the validation of, I'm not making this up, my experience is real. And that's why I implore everybody, if they are so curious to know and find out if they are different, to go on that journey. So Sandy, there's always a point if you ask me. I hope that answers your question. Okay, and I'm just saying your point there just to show everybody that she's 16. Yes, absolutely, and there's other things as well. Now, 16, very crucial age. You're coming up to GCSE examination year, things like getting extra time and accommodations. Now, big asterisk, that a diagnostic isn't essential or required to avail of those supports, but it means if you have it, your chances of not encountering any stumbling blocks along the way are going to be much, much higher. So, and then things like university, school, workplace accommodations, this will carry for life. So absolutely, there's always a good need for it. And by the way, I should say out to everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe for the Neurodiversity Training YouTube channel, because what we're going to do is we're hoping to get live stream interviews and guests and things like that. And we're going to really make it a good supportive hub here within this YouTube channel. Okay, that's all the questions that I have. Hopefully I explained and articulated everything okay. I'll give it a couple of minutes just in case there's any more questions that come in. Ask me anything. I'll give it another minute and see if any questions come in. Get your fingers on the thumbs on the keyboard. Ask your questions. And Mrs. Arnold has been such a good cat behind the camera because I was expecting her to jump at my face, and it hasn't happened. But I hope you take note. And you know what? I am hoping that whenever I come to Autism Awareness Month 2025, or Autism Awareness Day of 2025, that there is some meaningful change and that this video is so out of date and laughable and laughed at online. That's what I really hope. Oh, Jude said all this, Mr. Doom and Gloom coming onto his YouTube channel, going live saying that the whole thing's just a fireball. But look, we've solved all the problems and proved him wrong. I would love that. Okay. Oh, there's another couple that have just appeared. So Nicholas said, thank you. I've shown him pics of the hotel ADOS where ADOS will be, which instantly helped, but I couldn't really answer what would happen in the ADOS. He did ask his brother, though. Progress. That's what I like, progress. Okay. So Rowena said, my daughter has a diagnosis of autism, wanted to apply for HCP. However, the school said that she is high functioning. Do I still try to apply for myself? Rowena, yes, you do. Yes. Apply for it for sure. By the way, high functioning, again, just such an antiquated term. But again, it's because schools are so under-resourced and stuff like that, especially for, I'm just seeing your point coming up here that she's 9. So yes, absolutely apply for it. Apply for it yourself. I mean, as far as what we do and stuff here, I would work with people through applications and stuff like that if you feel that it's needed. But with the HCP application that you can get for the request for a statutory assessment, it's very, very simple. It's very, very straightforward. There are no magic buzzwords or anything like that. If she's already got a diagnostic, but one top tip that I will give is that do not focus it on mental health, as in my child is nervous, my child is anxious, or my child can experience depression or stuff like that. Articulate for the statutory assessment request what struggles she's having that are impacting her learning on a daily basis. Because if you don't articulate the impact of learning on a daily basis, do you know what they'll do with your application? They'll have it in their hand, they'll scrunch it up and throw it behind their shoulder, and it won't be looked at. I hope that answers your question, Rowena, or Rowena. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Okay, so that is everything. So everybody can go and have a lie down now after that, that delightfully heavy session. But I hope come next year, things may be a little bit different. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Again, we have some exciting things coming up. We're lining up guests, and we're going to make this a real supportive hub for everybody around the world as much as possible who want to ask questions and talk about this topic. One last one. Any advice now to manage behavior around crying babies? My son is very sensitive to any crying around him. I'm always on high alert in public places. He gets really upset and tries to hit. What I would suggest there are things like earplugs, loops, AirPods I really like. So that is a sensory thing where, high-pitched crying is obviously a sensory trigger. So it would be about trying to navigate that sensory difference through a sensory aid. Would probably be the best thing. Shop around. AirPods are pretty cool because every kid likes AirPods, because from a personal point of view, I don't like these big, giant, ugly ear defenders. I know some parents and kids love them, but I absolutely hate them because you have all these small kids walking around like they're working on a building site. And I don't like them. Personally, I know people love them, but AirPods are universally loved because they're cool and trendy and a fashion item whilst having a functional sensory use. I hope that answers that question. Oh, God, there's questions coming now. There might be a delay on the live stream, actually. It might be a few minutes behind, or if people have joined later or whatever. So Joy has asked, our daughter's autism took 8 years. Joy, I'm not surprised. Not one, but surprised. 8 years. No ADHD assessment. She doesn't want to be seen as different. So now there's help. She won't take it. It depends. Not all help can... It's all about... I know people are saying we haven't been offered any help, but it's like offering people food. It's like offering people drink. It's going to be what people can tolerate, what people are into, what they like, what they don't like, and so on and so forth. Where as far as ADHD assessments, and I mean, I'm saying this, it's like yours is 8 years. It's creeping up toward that way. Where I've spoken to a couple of people even today that have been waiting 6 years already. One 6.5 years, and one will be waiting 7 years in June. So it is creeping up toward 8 years. If you are an adult over the age of 18, you will not be seen at all publicly. But as far as the help being offered, maybe it's about asking her what she would like. What would she like? What does she feel would help her? And if she says she doesn't know, ask her to think about it and get back to you. Empowerment, as they say. Joy, I hope that answers your question. The loop noise cancelling ones are brilliant. And that's what I love about these live streams. People can jump in and help each other. The loop noise cancelling ones, I've personally never tried. But I've always used AirPods and I really like them. They would, again, not an affiliate. I don't have a business partnership with Apple. I bloody wish. But that's probably all I've got on that one, really. Oh, Joyce back. She's got into a good school, has her tribe. That's cool. I always like to hear that. But struggles to make deeper friendships. Help. She doesn't like to have the help for exams, etc. But here's the thing. Follow your child's lead, Joy, because I was somebody that I had a classroom assistant with me everywhere when I was younger. I mean, they were lovely people, but I didn't feel that I needed them. And if anything, sometimes overburdening and mollycoddling with help can have the opposite effect. It can make the kids resistant because human beings, young and old, are very good at accepting the help when they need it. And children want to be more independent and more autonomous, and that should be facilitated as well. Sometimes it can be a bit difficult to cut the apron strings or to stop over worrying, but I implore you to try. Okay, I think that's everything. We've got to the end of it. I really hope you've enjoyed that. And by the way, follow example from Cindy, who has liked and subscribed. So like and subscribe for more neurodiversity content, more Q&A sessions, and so on and so forth. If you just cannot wait until the next one, check out our ND Sphere app, ENDEESPHERE. Do I have it in a banner? I should have. Oh, look, I can do that from the live stream. I'm very caught up in the novelty of the live stream on iOS and Android. Aha, and I can share that on the screen now. So there it is, just as a visual, to show ND Sphere app on iOS and Android. ENDEESPHERE, where I do live classes in there, talks, Q&A sessions, lots of content, supportive for parents and neurodivergent adults as well. So I'm going to see any more comments. Nope, that's them all. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I really appreciate it. And try and have a nice rest of the day if you're in the autistic community and you have the same feeling about Autism Awareness Day that I do. But for all of you, stay amazing and stop fighting.